In 3, 2, 1. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine Broadcast. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Yellen, and I am here with Sean Reedy and your other host, Jeremy Jackson, and Dr. Tony Gia. Dr. Gia, thank you very much for joining us. Your lecture today was about environmental conditions in Houston.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you. Make yourself comfortable because we got a bunch of questions for you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I don't know if you've seen some things on CNN lately, but we're going to ask you some tough questions. So tell us about, what do you want people to know right away? What's the take-home message of the environmental conditions in Houston?
Well, I led off with the topic by saying that Houston was hot, and that's pretty obvious. Most of my talk was devoted to heat illness, and a lot of the times, especially during the summer, a lot of the kids go home. They don't really exercise a whole lot, and they go back to school, back to football, and then they go 100%. And that's a kind of recipe for disaster for heat illnesses. A lot of times people have cramping, a lot of dehydration issues, and so I kind of wanted to address some of those issues as well as some serious things that can happen with exertional heat illness.
Now, you said coming into practice. Now, we're supposed to have that acclimation period, correct? So I thought that was supposed to fix all of that. We don't have any heat illness when we have an acclimation period, correct, Doctor?
Well, the acclimation period is meant to lessen the effects of this. And, in the ideal world, none of us will have heat illnesses. But, I mean, when temperatures get to 95 triple digits, it's hard to avoid all those episodes.
And so do we see the same types of heat illness in this part of the country as we do, say, on the West Coast or on the East Coast? Like, for instance, I'm from California, you go in the valley, it's going to be 100, 105 degrees. But the difference is that maybe it's 20% humidity, where here it's 100 degrees with 95% humidity. So do we see the same types of illnesses there as we do here?
Well, anytime a place gets to that kind of temperature, it will produce a lot of heat illnesses. Being from Houston, though, the humidity plays a huge factor in terms of the wet bulb globe temperature, which I talked about, and more of the true temperature that people feel when they're outside. And it's not directly related to the weather temperature that's out there.
So the NETA has all these position statements about environmental conditions, right? And they're being written by really smart people. Tell us some takeaway messages that you had as a part of your talk. What do you want? If I was going to talk to a parent that had no idea about heat illness or anything like that, tell me what you want them to know.
Well, I want them to know about the acclimatization, as well as adequate hydration, which is a big deal in terms of a lot of the high school athletes. And it's not something that's really pressed upon. I feel, especially from personal experience with a lot of these teams, a lot of the kids just don't want to drink any water, and they go out there in the heat. And so I think those are the two main things that I wanted to drive home around.
Okay.
What are your recommendations for that, for those major two topics or those two directions? What are your major recommendations, and how do we? I mean, everybody knows. Yeah, you push water to them. You said they don't want to drink water. What do you do or what would you recommend us do? Me as an practicing athletic trainer, to say, this is why you need to be drinking more water. This is why you need to be taking care of yourself in a better manner.
Well, it's a tough question because especially when you're dealing with high school kids, it's going to be how much they're receptive to a lot of the things that you're talking about. And also there's an educational gap as well. A lot of them don't know about basic human physiology and all of those things. And so explaining a lot of that to them, telling them how to monitor how well their hydration status is by showing them their weights before and after, showing that you lost weight, and it's because you're losing water. Also, a lot of the kids like visual things, so you can tell them to look at their urines. If they're super dark, it's just a lot of things that you can little things you can tell the kids to get them to see why this is important.
And so let's take my son as a case study example, right? 16 years old, and he's going to the 11th grade, and he's playing football. So he's doing the SWAT conditioning, right? And he's doing some other things. I'm going to go home today, and I'm going to tell him, hey, I spoke to Dr. Gia, and Dr. Gia wants you doing this. What are some things you want him to know that he can, 16-year-old boy, what do you want him to know?
All right. So it also depends on what he's going for. So I'm guessing he's in football?
Football.
Yeah.
Football.
Yeah. And so the main thing is give your body a good 2 weeks to go out there, ramp it up. A lot of the times this practice schedule is already set, and so you don't have to go by the school schedule either. You can start this process, throughout the summer and just get acclimated throughout the summer, and that will be the ideal way of kind of preventing a lot of these injuries and illnesses from occurring.
Yeah, it always comes down to prevention.
I remember coming back from high school and, starting out on middle of July, early July, trying to, all right, I'm going to die going out. And, I always did it because I was always lifting. I was always training like that. You were always doing 7-on-7 when I was in school. But I would always go out right before and just do that extra running, do that and make sure. And I was doing it in the heat. But, there's not a lot of kids that want to do that. We're too much. And I was always outside anyway, because I was always working on the farm. So what are some things that we can advise them to help them develop that, making them say, because a lot of kids, like you said, they don't want to go out. They don't want to run. They don't want to go out and they don't want to do this extra stuff, but maybe you can kind of trick them into that. Like, be outside, be doing some stuff like that.
That's what it's all about nowadays. And so a lot of times the thing is most people or most kids don't like to go run, and it's not fun for them. And so other activities such as, maybe shooting some hoops outside, playing ultimate frisbee or soccer, something like that. And it doesn't even have to be a full intensity, workout outside. It's just being outside and doing light exercise. Every little bit helps.
I always tell my kids just getting out and doing stuff and doing it at the hot time of the day, just because. So that's a good one. I like those games and stuff.
Oh yeah, and we know so much more information now than what we did like when I was playing. Right? I'm sure I'm older than both of you. And so, when I was playing, there was no, information about hydration. Water was for sissies, and you never heard about anybody dying, or you never heard about all of these other things. What are some other take-home messages you want people to know? Right. So a lot of what we do in athletic training, similar to primary care medicine, is prevention. Right. So what are some other takeaways that you want people to know?
Well, I think the other thing that I didn't really touch upon in my topic is training. And, if you really want to train and be the best that you can, taking advantage of the science that we know now about acclimating, getting used to the heat, really pushing yourself in the environment that you're going to play in will make a huge difference on game day. And so I think that may answer a couple of the questions you guys asked before about how do you get kids to buy in. It's just, your body is, it's like a machine. You got to be well oiled. You got to maintain it, and these are all the things that you do to get it revved up to perform at peak capacity.
Right. Very good. All makes sense.
Yeah, and one of those things that goes with that is the aspect of what you said, fluid intake. But how about nutrition? Nutrition as well. Summertime nutrition in a lot of high school kids is not the greatest.
Especially those kids that are free and reduced lunch at the high school level, right?
Absolutely.
Free and reduced lunch, that's the only nutrition that they're going to get. And so they're going to go home. They're not going to get a whole lot of nutrition. Right? So what are some easy ways? What are some easy recommendations that you'll have?
In terms of nutrition?
Yeah.
It's always going to be a struggle for that too. Most of the things that taste good for you, as most people know, are not good for you. And so, that's a tough question. I would say that the main thing is just to try to get as much balance as you can.
Mhm.
It's good to eat junk food once in a while, but just eating in moderation.
I'm gonna text message my wife and let her know. Hey, Tony said it's good to eat.
Real foods, just real foods,
Yes,
right?
yes.
The
Things that grow.
things that
Yeah.
grow,
Things that grow in the ground, things that came out of animals.
potentially walk or came
Uh-huh.
out of animals or things like that. That is, you can actually tell where it came from.
Yes.
Type consistencies. No,
Very good.
absolutely.
Very good. Well, what other words of wisdom do you have to impart to us?
I think we pretty much covered it all.
I think
Absolutely.
it's pretty good. Well, if we don't have any more questions from, Oh, yeah. Hey, how do we get a hold of you?
All right. Let me get my business card out here.
If somebody wants to contact you, they have a question, how would they, do you have an email? Do you have a website?
Twitter.
Do you have a Twitter handle?
Well, I'm not hip enough for Twitter.
Okay.
But I've got an email address.
Yeah, well, what is it?
So it's Tony, TONY, JCPE @gmail.com.
Tony, TONYJCP @gmail.com.
Correct.
And they can say, hey, Doc, I heard you on the Sports Medicine broadcast. I got a question.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Outstanding. I love it. Outstanding. That's the reason why we brought him on as a preceptor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely understand.
He's one of the best. All right. Well, that's our conversation with Dr. Gia. We're going to sign off for now. And for Sean Reedy, Jeremy Jackson, the good doctor, I'm Dr. Josh Yellen, signing off for the Sports Medicine broadcast. All right. I got to make a little phone call right back. Hey, students are all set up to rotate with you? They're all
Yes. They emailed me last week.